Welcome to Blue Wave Radio, episode E1-1. This is an extract from a discussion with Councillor Bosman Grobler.
Well, I think corruption is really the culture that is created by the ANC, and it's really an organizational culture for them. The difficult thing about corruption is sometimes it's difficult to prove, and sometimes it's easy deniable because you can use systems and processes. If you keep your slips, then corruption is not that easy to prove. But the fact is, we all know that if you spend more money on a project than you should, that is corruption, and that in the end steals from the residents of that specific area. Corruption, by definition, is by misusing your position, either as a public representative or as a public official, to enrich yourself in any way that you can. And corruption is a theme that carries throughout all other themes of the election as well. But the first thing you need to do when we look at corruption is to establish an independent unit dedicated to identifying, fighting and prosecuting corruption. If you have a unit that is firstly independent, so it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're the president, the mayor or the premier, if you are found guilty of corruption, then you will be charged for it. It's very important for this unit to be independent. Mm-hmm. Secondly, if you have a unit that focus on these things, they will get specialized skills, they will get a specialized experience, and they will be quicker and quicker to pick up corruption in different aspects of public administration. I think if the more you work with these things, the quicker you are to identify where people pay too much for whatever service, whether it's something that you buy or whether it's a service that you deliver, but you will be quicker to identify that. So the first one is really to form this unit to investigate corruption and corrupt activities. Then we can look at making all the money spent by government to make those processes more transparent. And I think that's self-explanatory. It's an open door policy where you can see who gets the tenders, what they get paid for it, and what service they deliver. Very important if we look at corruption is to manage and to hold your public representatives accountable. Mm-hmm. And the DA believes that direct elections is a much more accountable way to make your politicians react towards the community. If you are directly elected, it means that you need to go back to the same community where you campaigned and come and stand for the promises that you made. In South Africa at the moment we use a proportional system, which means you stand on a party list. Then the party, depending on the percentage of the vote of the electorate, you get that percentage of seats you will get in your legislators or in parliament. But the fact is, your public representatives doesn't necessarily need to come back to the community after the election.
No, the situation we have is where a little town in the middle of nowhere, people vote for the president's face on the poster instead of for their local guy. So after the elections, and nothing happens, and the people cannot point to a specific person and hold him accountable. And there's a problem in that. There's a fundamental systemic problem in the fact that no one is really responsible. They hide inside this big system, and every time people get pointed out for corruption, then there's a quick shuffle of names in the system, and then everything carries on as usual, and the voter at the end gets no response and no value for his money.
Yes, 100% correct, and that's why we say direct elections are a much more accountable way of doing things. The second thing is on public representatives and also public officials is to do regular lifestyle audits. Mm-hmm. Because if you earn a certain amount of money but you have a lifestyle that doesn't compare to that, then somewhere you must earn extra money, and that's a big pointer towards corruption, and I think an idea where you can quickly find corruption as well. So regular lifestyle audits is something that the DA will definitely implement.
Yeah, I think the situation where a guy who's elected to office is double as wealthy as he was when he started is an obvious indicator.
And we see those things in South Africa, as sad as it is, but there's no consequence of that. And when we look at consequence, and that's the last point that the DA will implement once in government, is a real consequence for if you are found guilty of corruption, and that is 15 years in jail. So it doesn't matter whether you're the president, the premier, or just an ordinary public servant. If you are found guilty of corruption by the independent unit that's investigating corruption, you will be sent to jail for 15 years. And I think if there's a real consequence, then the actions will stop as well.
Yeah, there's something I'd like to add at this point, and that is, if you look at the origins of the word corruption, it actually means organic matter that's rotting. And if you've got a corrupt government and a corrupt governing party, such as the ANC, the word corruption means that they're rotting from the inside. They have a low moral standpoint. They are actually only in it for themselves. And what is evident happening to Eskom, happening to the SAA, happening to towns all over this country, is that they don't care how much it rots as long as they get money out of it.
Yes, as long as I look after myself and my cronies now, then I'm in a better spot. And that's also one of the ANC policies, is cadre deployment. And we can discuss this for another hour, but the fact is, if you only get moved around once you are suspected of corruption and not dealt with, it's never going to stop. And that's where the ANC is at the moment.
Yeah, they're failing. It's not only a failed state, it's actually a failed party.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening. This was Blue Wave Radio, episode E1-1. It was an extract from a discussion held with Councillor Bosman Grobler. For more information, please contact your local DA councillor.